I did not grow up off-roading. In fact, the first time I needed my Jeep was after a South Florida hurricane. The roads were flooded and my fun daily driver became an absolute lifeline. That is the moment that changed for me. That is the moment that I learned Jeeps are more than daily drivers. I wanted to see what else they could do. And from there, I've been able to take a stock Jeep to see some of the most absolute incredible places, and I want that for you. It's a functional design. The whole reason that cab is kind of narrow that I hear people complain about is because a lot of Jeep trails were cut by CJ2As. If you don't know what that is, watch that first episode of this series. You want a narrow cab as you're on a shelf road with a 1,000-foot cliff. Now, the fenders come out a little bit, but the fenders are expendable. You'd rather have fenders there, plastic fenders like that, versus like body panels that could potentially break and get dented and cause a lot of body work. The whole reason the front tire is where it is so that increases the approach angle. You can come upon a rock obstacle and just climb right up it because that front tire is right there. The whole reason for two doors is because they have incredible breakover angles and they don't get turtled as much as the longer wheelbase vehicles. Whole reason that that rear tire right there is towards the back is to give it a better departure angle. And one of the best things about a factory built Jeep Wrangler is that it has solid axles front and rear. But that's just the functional design of this. Let's talk about using the four-wheel drive system. Jeeps either have Command Trac or Rock Trac. Rock Trac is found on Rubicons. Command Trac is found on other Jeeps. For purposes of this video, they are both excellent four-wheel drive systems. Now, we're gonna try to keep this simple, but the biggest thing about our four-wheel drive systems is that you as the driver have to put it in four-wheel drive. Some of the components, some of the will work in two-wheel drive, but if you're going off-road, you have to put it into four-wheel drive high. And to keep this really simple, four-wheel drive high is used for faster speed off-roading, four-wheel drive low is used for slower speed off-roading, obstacles, that kind of stuff. Now, that is a very simple breakdown. I think I'm going to do a full off-road series in the future where we'll talk about general off-roading, but I'll probably, of course, say how I do things in a Wrangler. So you may want to subscribe if you're interested in that, but let's move on to the brake lock differential. Now, Jeep's brake lock differential sometimes makes a Rubicon not necessary. Now, what the brake lock differential is it's a computer algorithm that uses the brakes to develop more traction when out on the trail. I think it's best seen from this clip of me and my old JK on top of the world. You'll notice I get stopped briefly and then all of a sudden I start going. I did not engage lockers there. I just let the brake lock differential find the momentum, find the traction, and get going. Now, there is some secrets to that. You're gonna have to get off-road a little bit and you're gonna have to kind of play with your throttle response and the amount of gas you're giving it to really coax it. And I will say that the JL system is definitely better than the JK system. And unfortunately, if you have a TJ or older, you don't have it. And that's why the next situation, lockers, are extremely important in older vehicles. But even if you have newer ones, let's talk about how to use those appropriately. Now, the Jeep Rubicon is an extremely cool Jeep because it was the first modern day Jeep that came with factory front and rear lockers. Now, what lockers do is they lock the tires together to give you increased traction. So as you saw with brake lock differential, it has to kind of think, it stops and does all that. Lockers just work. Lockers link up together and they make those tires move to push you up an obstacle. Now, I've heard of people saying that they put on their lockers at the beginning of the trail and then turn them off at the end of the trail. That only works for things like the cutoff, an extreme trail here in Grand Junction, that the whole trail is an obstacle. For most people watching this video, lockers are only needed for obstacles. And in fact, I don't use lockers a lot of times because I'm trying to make guides that show people that have sports and other kinds of Jeeps that are not Rubicons how their Jeep is going to respond out there on the trail. So I like to see if the brake lock differential can get the Jeep through the trail. However, there has been a few trails that I use the lockers of the Rubicon, most notably Mount Blanca. Mount Blanca has obstacles that are on a shelf road. Now, I could maybe get up Mount Blanca with just using the brake lock differential. The thing about it is I do not want to risk stopping myself on an obstacle when I'm on a shelf road that's leaning me over an edge. So on those obstacles, I used my lockers to help me get up. Now let's talk about the sway bar. The sway bar is used in on-road situations to decrease the sway of the vehicle, making them safer when you go at higher speeds and around corners. But off-road, you want to disconnect that sway bar, because if you disconnect it, your front axle now can move further up and down, keeping contact with uneven terrain as you go through it. Now, with older Jeeps like this TJ, you have to disconnect the sway bar by disconnecting the links manually. You have to get under there, disconnect them. Now, newer Jeeps like the JK and JL have a button that electronically disconnects the sway bar, increasing your articulation of those vehicles. Now, the one trick with those is in stock Jeeps, you can only use that in four-wheel drive low. Now, there are ways around it where you could potentially use it in four high or even two-wheel drive, but we won't be discussing that in here. Just know from the factory, you can only use that in four-wheel drive low, and it is used to make off-roading easier. I think that's the best way. It makes off-roading easier, giving you more traction than you would have if your sway bar was connected. So you now understand your four-wheel drive system, but maybe you're not fully sold on the fact that your stock Jeep can handle the trail. Let's clear that up, and let's clear that up starting with some snow. Yeah, I've been filming this video for way too long.
Keep going.
Now, as a Jeep owner, you need to be aware that your Jeep is already an amazing off-roader. You don't have to do a ton of modifications. You don't have to do any modifications to take it on some of the most difficult trails. As long as you have about 10 inches of ground clearance, underbody protection, good tires, you're gonna be able to do some really difficult trails. And so as a Jeep owner, I wanted to make sure that you knew that, and that you don't get fooled into, oh, you have to modify it to do some cool trails, because that's not true. If you don't believe me, watch our channel. All right, maybe you don't believe me that your stock Jeep is ready for the trails, or maybe you just don't want to risk your Jeep out here in the off-road world. Well, I have a tip for you guys. I think you should absolutely rent a Jeep. You can rent a Jeep in Moab, all over Colorado, and in many places that they have off-road trails. And I think it's a great way to dip your feet into this whole Jeep off-roading thing. Now, I wish I had a discount for a Jeep rental for you guys. I don't, but I do have a discount on an Overland rental out of Denver, Colorado, Titus Adventure Company. These vehicles are absolutely kitted out for everything that you would need to do some really awesome overlanding in this amazing state. And Titus Adventure Company is so cool. They let me rent a 4Runner. We have a video coming out on that. I can't wait to show you guys that one. That was really fun. I pushed that 4Runner maybe a little too hard, but if you use the term mall crawlers, Titus will give you a discount on an overland rental, because they're just an amazing company, and I am proud to be able to talk about them, because it is a cool company. Is this supposed to make as much noise as it's making?
Tons of it, like marbles in a washing machine.
Okay, that's what it's doing. Now, if anyone ever asks you, why did you buy a Wrangler? You need to respond, I bought it because of its solid axle. Now, I'm gonna explain that for you. Now, this is a channel that has shown IFS vehicles can be absolutely incredible off-road. But the whole reason that I am able to get a stock Jeep up some of the hardest trails is because it is built with a solid axle. The solid axle allows more articulation, and it allows increased durability so that I can take it on hard trails and be absolutely fine. So yes, the solid axle is something that is absolutely desirable, and it is the one key component, at least in America, that gives us a leg up on every other off-road vehicle that's built. Now, you're gonna find that trail ratings are subjective. I like to use Trails Off Roads ratings because they are at least as objective as can be, but there is subjectivity with them. Now, with that said, A stock Jeep Wrangler Rubicon should be able to do with a good driver up to level 6 trails. Now, I was able to get this Jeep on level 7 trails, but the whole reason I am building this Jeep to be a little bit better off-road is so I can handle even harder trails. But stock Jeep Wrangler Rubicons, including my JKU and TJR, are both good for level 6 trails in my opinion. Now, I know some of you guys need to hear this because I needed to hear this too when I was younger. It is absolutely okay to hear your skid plates crunching on rocks as you're going through trails. Remember, your Jeep was meant to make it through the Rubicon Trail. So, they didn't give us enough tire, but they gave us skid plates to protect the vital underside of the Jeep. And this is what my skid plates look like 2 to 3 years ago after doing Mount Blanca. They've only gotten worse throughout the time. I've had to do no repairs to the underside because those skid plates have protected the Jeep. I'm telling you, the only thing wrong with my Jeep is its manual transmission. Now, who out there remembers the term built, not bought? Well, I definitely remember it because it was used quite a bit when the Rubicon was a newer vehicle out in the trails. People just didn't realize how well Jeep built it from the factory. And that's the thing. This Jeep was built from the factory to handle the Rubicon Trail. The Rubicon Trail is actually not an easy trail. It is a challenging trail, but even this four-door was able to do the Rubicon Trail completely stock. And that's the thing I've tried to show with these videos, because the thing is, so many people think they're building a Jeep to make it better on the trails, and they don't end up doing the right stuff. Most people will end up just putting on bigger tires and a suspension lift and say, hey, now my Jeep is built, I'm ready for the trails. Well, if you didn't upgrade the gearing of the Jeep, if you didn't upgrade the drivetrain, well, your Jeep is not better built than what the Jeep engineers did from the factory. So you have to remember, when you're building a Jeep, there's so many more components than just getting yourself some more ground clearance by putting bigger tires on it. So if you don't know the way to build a Jeep appropriately, it might be best just to stick with your stock Jeep until you learn that knowledge, until you learn those skills. Then you can absolutely build a Jeep better than stock. Now, whether your Jeep is stock or fully built like those Jeeps back there, it is your off-road skills that actually matter. Let's get into some tips that will help you guys make the most out of your Jeep adventures. All right, every Jeep owner should know how to use their vehicle to the best of their ability. So I definitely recommend practice using your four-wheel drive. If you encounter a situation that might look a little sketchy, like going down this alternate start of Fins and Things, which I'm sorry I missed that on our trail guide, but it looks really fun. But you'll see something like this, and you'll know that your vehicle can do it and that you can if you've practiced your four-wheel drive driving, which is something I do a lot. I'm always practicing, always trying to get better. I am no Stan Fuller.
A little more speed. Yes!
Now, by having a Jeep Wrangler, you can end up camping in some of the most amazing places that not everyone can get to, because you can go on moderate and difficult trails which stop so many vehicles. And from that, you're going to be rewarded with remoteness, solitude, and peace. And I want that for you guys, so definitely use your Jeep Wrangler to find some amazing camp spots off of harder trails. Well, this needs to be included in a Jeep owner's guide because we have had some issues with runaway Jeeps on steep grades. If you're parking on a steep grade, you want to make sure you have the parking brake engaged. If you have a manual transmission, have it in gear, and you want to point the tires into the mountainside. You don't want to point it away where it would roll off, especially if you have a passenger in there. Please take extreme caution with Jeeps parked on steep grades. I know it doesn't look like it's steep right here, but it is pretty steep here, so this is a good portion or a good place to show you that. Well guys, I absolutely love a dirty Jeep, but one of the things you want to do after off-roading is wash it. Now the reason for this is you want to make sure that you didn't do any damage to the Jeep when off-roading. These things are extremely durable, but washing it is just going to help you so much. You're going to be able to see if you have any new leaks or if you've bent any components. Now with that said, I wheel really hard and I never do any damage to these things, but it's just something that you need to watch out for after wheeling. Make sure your Jeep is in good condition. Now as a Jeep owner, I have had my rear tires stolen, so ever since that time I have always put wheel locks on them. They can still steal them with wheel locks, but it's a little less likely. You know, these are only 30.5 inch tires, most likely not going to be stolen, but some of you guys are running 33s, 35s, 37s, 40s. You want to protect those tires. They are worth some money. Well guys, I am in Canyonlands National Park in the Needles District. Look at these views right here. Now, the national parks have off-road trails that you can go into and see these incredible places, but a lot of them require permits and sometimes you'll need a gate code and that kind of stuff. And you need to do your research before you go into an amazing place like this. And you can do your research by going onto the government websites. I personally like to make it easy, and I do use Trails Off-Road. They usually have the information in their little guide of the trail that you want to do, and it just makes things easy. But that's the biggest key for this segment, is just make sure you know what you need to get into some of the coolest trails in this country. Now, when it comes to Jeep Wranglers, I think there's only 3 acceptable tire types. That is all-terrains, rugged terrains, and mud terrains. Now we have not had very good luck with all terrains on here, so I personally recommend mud terrains because I've had excellent luck with mud terrains. I have heard good things about rugged terrains. They're kind of a mix between all terrains and mud terrains. Now the ones I would definitely not have on your Jeep, which sometimes Jeep puts on there, is all seasons. All seasons are not for Jeep Wranglers. Let's get into the community aspect of Jeep off-roading, because it's the people, the events, and the community which really makes this a special kind of vehicle. Now, a ton of people love these vehicles, and that's one of our greatest strengths as a community, is that we come together for special causes. A few years ago, there was this amazing kid named Kendrick. And he gave his life in the STEM shootings, but he was also one of us. He was a Jeeper. And I remember gathering a whole bunch of Jeeps were there for him after those shootings, after he had died. And that's the kind of stuff that we have always been really good about doing as a community. And that's the kind of stuff that we need to continue to be good about doing. You know, come together for important causes. And Kendrick was an absolute, probably the best of us. So if you don't know about him, definitely check out his story, because that kid was awesome. Now you guys can probably tell from this series, I absolutely love Jeeps. However, most of these videos that we film on this channel are not filmed with fellow Jeepers. It's filmed with Fords, Nissans, Toyotas, all kinds of very cool vehicles. And that's where this tip comes in. The biggest key when it comes to wheeling with a group, yes, there's amazing people in the Jeep community, and if you have them, go wheel with them. But the biggest and most important key is wheeling with good people, and I am so thankful that I am surrounded with good people out there on the trails with me. Probably showing you some photos from some of our adventures that will be coming out. These guys are absolutely awesome. Some of them drive Jeeps, and some of them drive other vehicles, and that's the takeaway. Wheel with people that are awesome. I wouldn't know what to do, so I would call Mike to tell me what to do, but luckily Mike's here and he knows what to do. Although I consider it rare, there are going to be some times that you get stuck and may need a recovery. When it comes to me, it usually involves mud. Now, 80% of the time, you're going to be able to self-recover. So that is the first option, and you want to learn those skills for self-recovery. Next up is using one of your buddies that's out there in their Jeep with you. Use them to get a tug, use a tow rope, use a kinetic strap. That's usually all you'll need. Now, if it's really bad or you've done something kind of odd, you may need a recovery service like TrailMater. Now, TrailMater has a channel, and I think it's absolutely excellent for learning recovery techniques. Mike, who's part of his crew, asks some of the best questions and gets that great information out of Rory in those videos. And then you got Sean, who is absolutely hilarious. And of course, those videos have incredible editing by Justin. So you can learn a lot by watching the TrailMater channel. Now, there is a fourth recovery option that we don't always talk about, and that's using one of your buddies in a Toyota. But trust me, you will never hear the end of it if you get recovered by a Toyota. Welcome to Colorado Mall Crawlers. I'm currently in a bad spot. And now, if you really want to be a part of the Jeep community, I think the best way to do that is by joining a Jeep club. Now, I really got my start into true off-roading with Mid-South Jeeps based out of Memphis. We went to off-road parks all the time. I probably know the East Coast off-road parks better than most YouTubers because of Mid-South Jeeps. Now, I get it. You may be in an area that doesn't have a Jeep club, so I have a solution for you guys too. Now, if you're looking for an event that's like a summer camp for Jeepers where you're going on trail rides all day, camping together, well, that's where I'm at right now. I'm at Mile High Jeep Club's All for Fun event, and they do this every year. Next year it's going to be their 60th anniversary, and it basically is a summer camp for Jeepers. Now, some of you guys may be into hardcore rock crawling, and you could do Grand Mesa Jeep Club's Rock Junction. And they do some more moderate, easier trails, but where the western slope of Colorado really rules is in hardcore off-roading, and it's some of the best stuff I've seen that's kind of natural. Well, not really fully natural, but it's better than many of the off-road parks that I've been into. So you definitely may want to check that out. And of course, if you're more into the mainstream, the mecca of all Jeep Club events, well, that would be Red Rock Four Wheelers Easter Jeep Safari. Now, that is a cool event, and all those clubs I talked to you about, you can join their membership, or you could just go to their events and get to react and interact with a whole bunch of Jeepers in cool areas. I have no idea where this event will be next year, but I'm pretty sure I'll be there again. Well, guys, I hope this series was useful. That was my main goal with it, was just to bring you useful information. I try to make it better by filming in really awesome places, but that's not what we normally do here. We've always made trail guides, and now we're making overland guides. We'll still make trail guides too, but overland guides are cool because I'm creating these unique routes using trails off-road, and it's going to be better videos, and I'm excited about that. We just haven't gotten them edited at this point, but we're going to get them edited. But that's what we're filming this year. I'm so excited for them. If you want to see the precursor to them, though, that's a trail guide up there. If you want to see that off-road overland tips video I was talking about, that's over there. And if you want to see potentially a bonus episode to this Jeep ownership guide, hit that subscribe button. Thanks, guys. Bye.